وأؤمن به جل وعلا ولا أكفره وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. All praise belongs to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His help, His assistance, and His guidance. We believe in Him and do not disbelieve in Him. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and messenger. Allah sent him. Okay. You can. Okay. Bismillah. Bismillah. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. How's that? Okay. In continuing, alhamdulillah, basically, what we would like to do today is kind of wrap up where we are now as a community, thank and praise Allah semi-properly for the gifts and everything that's been coming our way, whether the people that sent it meant to send it that way or not. And also as a few reminders, because this is another one of those periods when if the Muslims are not plugged in correctly, they would feel very bad. Well, what's happening in Palestine and Yemen and what have you. And I don't know if anyone remembers those, well, I'm sure those lectures on Bashir Room in 2006 when Lebanon was invaded by the Israelis and everybody, they had blown up big oil facilities, water was running, oil was running into the beautiful coastline, all that, and everybody was really sad. So we came out with maybe about 3 or 4 lectures in a row. All of them was called Bashir Room, and Bashir Room or Bashir is good news. And a person like Musa alayhi salam was a mubashir. The Quran refers to him that he was a bringer of good news. And so that seemed like 2006, like 50 million years ago, almost. So if you remember, our khutbah was very specific and very firm, at least 3 of them in a row. No, this is good news. And don't worry about whatever you think is happening, whatever it looks like happening. This is going to turn out to be very good news. Seemed like that day everything flipped. And Hezbollah, with second and third period weapons, defeated the Zionists blatantly. And the Zionists had 4th and 5th generation weapons. And they whooped them bad. And they gave pride to all the so-called Arab world. Everybody, even the Saudis, was happy and grinning on the side. That was the first good news that we had in relation to so-called Arabs and Israelis in a long, long time. Also, the combination of weapons that was used was an odd combination, and it wasn't expected that Hezbollah, which was moving from a general Islamic movement to a good, well-structured Islamic organization and with governmental overtones. And it was moving fast into that. So when we gave those lectures, we said, oh no, this is big time. This is good for us. And it turned out to be good. This is the first time you saw Israelis on national television technically crying. They were sitting on them tanks, they was crying. I don't know if you saw, they was crying real tears. And then they was trying to find out where they was at, and they was talking, they sound like Indians, talking about Indians with ghost shirts on. They was there, they was supposed to be here, they was popping up, and they was riddled, brain riddled. So, this is a very similar time to that. And when we would look at the bombings and the killings and everything that's going on in Palestine right this very minute, and when you see the Zionists walking in Masjid al-Aqsa with boots on and just blatant disrespect, now I'm giving our take on this, and I'm projecting that this is a similar period as 2006 for the Muslims. And I'll go into another period of so-called forecasting, that this period, when you start putting everything together, the Zionists thought or thinking now that we didn't put, and with Netanyahu, he's thinking we didn't put a seal on this. We bad. We're not putting up with nothing. And forget about all the Oslos and everything. And so the people would think Palestinians don't have a chance, and they done moved the embassy, you know what I mean, to Jerusalem, the American embassy. They done did all of that. Okay. But at the same time, we have to try to stay in tune with the transitional activities or international activities that's going on. Yemen, which has been a human tragedy, to say the least, is beginning to take shape and form. Palestine is something that the Zionists thought they were making big progress in the world. You know, we done got the dumb Arabs on our side, some of them, 2, 3 of them, and we done just obliterated everybody. Okay, that's the way it was before. And everything that happened to them in 2006 looked like this is a repeat. We have to hold on a few days to a few more things, but this looks like and it smells like exactly the repetition. If you study the world situation, the world attitude, it's a little bit different. Netanyahu, his attitude deserves to be knocked down. That's the way it looks right now. We have to wait a few days till a few more pieces fall together. All the weakness in the weak implementation of the U.S. with the great Iranian deal up in the air, and just the possibilities of certain people running. is bringing us back to that 2006 era. Well, you can never go back. But you see, the thing that always brings the Zionists down is arrogance. You can't get nobody more arrogant than Netanyahu. You can't get anybody. They didn't went in the back. They said, we're going to tighten up on this 2006 stuff, and we're going to hit them with this, we're going to hit them with that. Okay, the very thing that they was counting on to get them over the hump will be the very thing that brings them down, that brings them to the table. Okay, I won't say much about what we talked about years ago about this is a protracted struggle, destabilization, temporary transformation. This is around 2011 in that area. Organizing of unity, of opposition, semi-consolidation, that actually happened. Regional vision, that has actually happened. No matter what they wanted from it, that coalition, when you take Iran, when you take Iraq, and when you take Syria, that's all running along that whole belt right there. Then you jump over to Yemen. All of those and everybody involved in that did what they did, probably not knowing what they were doing. When we take the Zarifs and when we take the Hassan Rouhanis and when we take all of those people, they were doing certain things according to their wishes and desires, and they was just falling into the historical trap. If they wasn't trying to, that's where they are right now. So now, all of the historical alliances, when we talk about Iran, when we talk about Iraq, when we talk about Syria, those are all linked right there together. The Zionists have attacked all of them. In proxy, they've had their proxies. The Kurds do stuff in Iraq, and also their direct offshoot, what they produced, Daesh and all of that, to do all of what they wanted. And if you looked at it, oh man, all of that area destroyed, Syria destroyed, it's laid waste. Oh, when you take Iraq and you take all that and put it together, you would begin to think that this is a disaster till you bring Yemen in, till you technically bring China and Russia in as supporting cast and supporting actors. They don't see themselves as supporting actors. They see themselves as running the show. And whatever benefits and whatever China thinks it's going to get by its whatever it feels like it's having, is serving a divine purpose right now. Whether they know it or not, or whether they like it or not. But we have to be able to see and understand all the things that are going on in the world, whether the other people see it and feel it or not. Even the Palestinian people may not have a feel for what's going on, because sometimes each people is focused on their own hurt and their own, you know what I mean? And sometimes they don't see the picture, the big picture. Well, if we have anything that we have been doing over the decades, is keeping score of everything. All the scores we've kept have came out 98% like we thought of. That's keeping score. When you go over there, you say, hey, that's the score. Do you agree with this? Yeah, it's a score, all right. But they may not have agreed with it in the beginning. What happened and how it was perceived, now, okay. So Bashirum, and also 2011. And now, 2021, with Iran, with Iraq, with Palestine, with Yemen. And you have to remember, Shia Iran is the only country that is wholesale coming out supporting Sunni Palestine. The other Uncle Toms, 2 or 3 of them signed on with the Zionists. Okay, fine, don't worry about it. Wonderful. We're not saying wonderful, but they did it. We didn't do it, they did it, right? You hear them rumbling about Shia Hezbollah right now. And no matter what they do, they don't want to mess with Hezbollah. Let them do what they want. They didn't say Hezbollah is sending some rockets over. Why you ain't going over there after them then? Are you so bad, right? Hey, the Zionists, no. See, wa makru Allahu khairul makirin. Allah they plan and Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners. Allah is putting all this together because you and I, Iran, the Iraqis, and all of it are basic humans with whatever happened, they gonna deal everybody else a pretty nice hand, but they gonna deal themselves the best hand. And they can't help it because they're human beings. No, very few people are gonna deal the other guy a better hand than he got, and he's dealing it, you know what I mean? And can see all the cards. All right, so here's what we're heading at. Allah is in charge. Allah is in charge, and of course, we don't have to mention it. Allah has been in charge of all of this. And also, this comes down to us too. And we'll say a few things technically about ourselves. If we was talking about things, we would like to talk a little bit about durability, endurance, steadfastness, stability, persistence, longevity, long lifeness. We always talk about those, and we always use that type of vocabulary. Another thing that we use quite a bit is redundancy. Does anybody remember us using that word? Redundancy. Now, our redundancy is so redundant that it rocks you to sleep. You know, you do it over and over and over again. And boss man, he's trying to stay woke. He's sitting there drinking coffee and, you know, all kind of, probably drinking crank to stay woke. But when you get a feel for who he is, what he's doing, and how he's doing it, and how he's associated with his people, you just keep throwing the stuff out there. It's like throwing a left and then dropping it. And then pretty soon, he said, that nigga trying to trick me. But after a while, you wide open, and pretty soon he's got to clip you. He's got to, because it's too tempting. And it's there, and you didn't time it. I can get that boy. I don't care what he up to. And then when he moved, then you got him. Because you've tried, tested, and timed all of this all along. And sometime in battle, 1,000 victories, 1,000 battles, know yourself, know your enemy. Okay, we're not bragging, but we have had so much experience with Boss Man that we feel like, well, the proof is we have some knowledge of his behavior and how he responds. Okay. So now here we are. We're going into, this is a major stage. This is not a minor stage. We're going back to California, and we got stuff that we're going to do. Okay. Now, most of it don't have nothing to do. We don't care what he or the system is going to do. We're going back there to do what we're going to do. Everything has lived out its course. Everything, all the signs, you know, it's all kicking in. It's like the light that shines through one of the pyramids. The sun goes past that time every now and then. I mean, every 100 or 1,000, I don't know how many years. But when it shines on that little light, boom, it illuminates certain things. Now, they built it so they got certain things hooked up, you know, and they, you know, you can say what you want. But the whole pyramidal structure from Egypt, the ones in South America and Peru and everything is lined up with this thing here, this universe. All of them. I mean, and they was all built before they all knew each other. You know what I mean? I mean, the pyramids in South America, the pyramids over there. So now, there's a certain period in history when that sun shines on a certain thing and it illuminates everything within that system or within that. That's where we are right now. Not that we arranged it, we're saying psychologically and organizationally, we're in that period. We're in that period right now. Why we didn't do certain things years ago, months ago, is because it wasn't the right time. Okay? We're here now, the statements we make, the things that we do have excelled us and propelled us into a certain position. The things that we always refer to this as a protracted struggle, a long-range struggle. And we have not taken, we're only a few individuals, but as a movement, we have not taken anywhere near the punishment that successful other revolutions or evolutions was. Like if we mentioned China, our friend, they had it tough. They're the ones that referred to a protracted, long-range struggle. But compared to what we've been involved in, that was a short period of time. From 1921, the Communist Party, to 1949. And it was all, they had established that, okay, now, we don't know the final dates of all of this, but we have to look at the score, our own score. How well have we coordinated our activities according to our own expectations of reality for the time in which we're living? How well have we done that? That's the first question. How well have we done that? And when we ask that question, how strategic has the timing been? How accurate have our forecasting been? How correct have we been in our analysis? Is ISNA's analysis been correct? Has ICNA's analysis been correct? Have America's analysis been correct? Right? You look at their analysis. I was watching the program last night about the Korean War. You know, it's been since World War II that America has actually, well, they claim Grenada. 5 people down there. Korea, does anybody remember? Well, what happened in Korea? They got their hat brought to them in Korea. They was the one begging for, at Pinmanjan, for a ceasefire. Technically, the war is still going on. There's still a technical war. There's no peace treaty for the Korean War. And they tried to call it a police action where 58,000 people got killed, 50-some thousand people got killed, basically the same amount that got killed in Vietnam, and they were slaughtering the brothers in Vietnam. It was unbelievable. So what has America done with all its capabilities in Vietnam? 500,000 men over there. Agent Orange, half of them came back crazy and everything else. It's unbelievable. Dope fiends, and it's just, oh my goodness. That's Korea. Korea and then finally Vietnam. Okay, what about them recently? They had a Tabas exposition when they had all these helicopters flying over to Iran, to do them some damage. And a sandstorm came and had them boys flying into each other and just knocking each other out. It must have been 80, yeah, it was 80. It was unbelievable. Okay, but let's scratch all of that. Let's just say about, was it 20 years ago? Yeah, about, it was 18 years ago with Iraq, I think. Yeah, 2003 in March. Afghanistan, it's been 20 years. And they're not running out of, we straighten this out, we got all that. They are running out after 20 years there. The big colonial power, they're technically running out. They're saying, hey man, you gotta, what they're doing there is the same thing as them people jumping on them helicopters on the top of the U.S. Embassy. Remember those scenes? In 1975. That's what's happening in Afghanistan now. Oh, we went over there, we want to straighten up what's going on in Iraq. Straighten up what? You went you went over there and got your behind kicked. And you caused so much trouble to no avail. All that trouble they caused. All the armadas that they developed, Daesh and all of those people, they developed them all. Their allies, Saudi Arabia, the richest Arab country in the world, fighting against the poorest Arab country in the world. And Yemen has a few friends and a few defenses, and they packing up ready to go home right now. Iran and Saudi Arabia is getting ready to smoke the peace pipe. So who's giving up? All of these things that we talk about relates to, first of all, whose analysis always fit that what's going on now. There's something that's happening in the Shia community. There's too many millions of people going a certain place. The day something happens, we're the only ones come out and say, that's what it was. And then when you look all over the Shia world, you see that's exactly what it was. When there's 7 million people pouring out in Tehran, several million people, when they got Muhandis and Soleimani together in Iraq, right? Hey, it's solidifying Iraq, right? And it's solidifying the Islamic Republic, and it's bringing in that whole crew of Hezbollah, and all of the people of Palestine are there cheering. What we're trying to say is this: all along, during every period, people have been looking at us like, oh, you guys are taking it on the chin. That's the most insane. If we go over for a minute what's been going on with us, longevity. How many black organizations ever lasted over 5 years with a frontal confrontation with the United States government? How many? None. Not a one, not a single one. Not a single one. The whole black movement, if you say 65 by 1970, it was wrapped up. The Black Panther Party by 1970 and 71 was getting loans or grants from the United States government. The movements in Chicago, when I was in the federal penitentiary with Jeff Ford and them, he was in the federal penitentiary for taking money from the government, the Blackstone Rangers. And they didn't have enough sense to know that if the government hands you a ton of money, right, there's got to be something behind it. That was a whole crew of those type of people, even as Muslims later on. One of the Muslims in New York, this guy makes lectures in Australia. Khalid Yassin, is that somebody? Khalid Yassin, yeah. Khalid Yassin, when I first started going to New York and working with the brothers in the early 80s, Khalid Yassin was the Imam up there, and they had just thrown him out. Why? He went to Saudi Arabia, got a big bundle of money, and came back and bought a red Cadillac. And now he has the people in Australia and all over just trusting and loving him. And then people will ask me, what do you think about so-and-so? I say, ooh, I ain't never heard of him. I don't want to be bothered. Okay, now, with the histories of everybody like that, if we take the main players and functionaries right now, what are they doing? What are they saying? What are they doing and saying that makes sense according to the environmental circumstances that we're in? It's not only that we have been correct, but we have been correct against all odds. Nobody, when you come out with a big mouth running your mouth and you're always right, you're going to have, boss man ain't going to like that. Okay? So it's clear he don't like it. That's too bad. And the more he don't like it, the hotter the water he get in. The shirt I got on right now, it's like I showed, boss man bites the dust. Boss man has bitten the dust and will be biting the dust. Because like all the articles we wrote on Pax Britannia, Pax Romania, right? Pax Americana. What was those articles? That was 2002 we was writing those articles. Remember those articles? Shh. Okay. The point is, we're going back now to California to institute and to pull off the things that we've been postponing all along. We could have started this 2013. We could have started in any of those years. It wasn't the right time. We know it wasn't the right time because we wasn't getting no direction on doing something until the direction came in about this. This is the time. It's like you get a taste in your mouth to do something, you know. You say, that's it. You know, when we used to live iron, we'd be sitting there waiting. You'd be waiting till something. Then all of a sudden you taste it. You say, I got it. You've seen that. I don't care how heavy the weight was. You know, you just seen it go up. And you do. 400 pounds for something. Some do 5. Some people 6. I think they up on the bench presses up around 700 pounds or something now. But I'm talking about the old days when we was just kids. That was a long time ago. So 450 was big iron. And the record was 625. So if we was that high in a couple of years, you know, then it was all right. The point is everything that we're talking about now is like the taste is there. This is the reality, okay? It doesn't make no difference what someone else wants us to do or what they got a program to encourage us to divert our attention. We're not going to do that. We're going back to Oakland now to do what we believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do. All our other outlines and steps for victory, they've all came out. And not only they came out, but it's unbelievable. Some of the names we called all this stuff: psychodegradable, psychocomposting, using the SHIT that they throw on you as a compost, as a fertilizer. It's simple. It's Negroid. But no matter how much we try to tell the system to do this or do that, and we're going to do this, they don't get it. They don't get psychocomposting. They don't get psychoparalysis. They don't get it, but they're paralyzed. The system is psychologically paralyzed right now. They can't do nothing. In California, remember last 2-3 years, the fires are so hot. The governor was almost crying. Newsom was almost crying. You know, I mean, it was just, that's when up near Redding they had the fire within, a hurricane within a fire. Remember that stuff? That means, you know how the blacksmiths blow the thing to make the fire hot? Imagine a whirlwind within a fire and it's burning wood. The stuff that's happening now is off the charts. Everything that's going on in the world is off the charts. And they ain't doing nothing about it. They just, oh, we caught 1 billion fish. Some of them died of starvation with a full stomach, right? That's what they're saying about the fish. Because they're eating the plastic, and the plastic they ain't got enough sense to know that the plastic don't fill them up. They even got camels, man, them plastic bags that blow all over. The camels, that big hump, they got camels at that hump is full of plastic. The camel don't know this is plastic, and you don't digest it, and it just builds his hump up bigger. Pretty soon he gonna die he gonna think he full of water, and he gonna drop dead, cause he ain't got no liquid in him, right? Psychoparalysis. The world is paralyzed. Everybody is doing the same thing they've been doing, and they expect something different to come. When the Zionists are killing the Palestinians, and the world has gotten tired of it, but they don't realize it because they had dumb Donald Trump get them a few Arab allies from those dummies, and they think that's the reality. The other reality is Europe, Asia, the world is saying that ain't gonna work. Just like South Africa. For a long time, it cruised along, did what it wanted to do, right? And all of a sudden, they said, it ain't what's happening. That's the same thing that's happening to Israel right now. That's why we say to take it easy on this analysis. This analysis today is very close to the analysis of 2006, Mubashir. And they thought we was crazy, that what's good news about the invasion of Lebanon and Palestine? Well, just stand back and get ready, right? Just get ready. That's what we're saying. They say, you going out on a limb, you talking like that. We've been out on a limb. So far, we haven't been wrong. Suppose we're only 60% correct or 70% correct. So far, we've been 95% correct, right, on all of the stuff we've ever talked about. Suppose we're only 60% correct. That's fine. Suppose we're only 40% correct. Okay, good. So this grand strategy, whether we call it the psycho-negroid implementation strategy, we do all of this flim-flam talk because the white man don't know which part is serious and which part we playing. He don't know what the niggas is all the way playing, or they ain't playing at all. And he's paranoid. You gotta remember, everything we told him came out on him. You're gonna mess with someone. And this didn't start last few years ago when everybody's hearing it. This has been going on since before the revolution in Iran. But it really became highlighted when we were going to universities and we're talking about this and Palestine and everything. And this is when he started keeping score. Because before that, up until maybe 20, 25 years ago, I guess he would think he was in charge. Then remember we said we're in D.C. for a certain reason. We said we're here, we've been here since '89, that we're here, and we said when we came here that if we can last 5 years, we're gonna get the whole game on, the Islamic movement. And now, what is it? It's 30 years, 32 years. Is that 32 years? 89? It's a long time. Okay. Now, anybody that's been around during that period, try to associate what we have said about Islam and the Islamic movement and the projections that we made. This is what keeping score is about. So right now, we're not being arrogant, we're just keeping score. The score is Masjid al-Islam 50, USA 0. They haven't been right on nothing. We told them don't go to war in Afghanistan, leave them people alone. They went on over there anyway. Oh, you gotta leave those Iraqis alone. We're gonna go over there and we'll put a dictator in charge and we're gonna run everything. And they leave, they don't know what to do, they had to go. and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. Netanyahu sounds the same way right now. We're just not going to, and he's a devil. He's a real devil. You know, he was the ambassador over here, and he hates the Palestinians, and he is serious about his foolishness. Well, you just wait. Psychoparalysis is spreading. It's kind of like a psychohypnosis. Yeah. Something is going on because they're not responding to anything properly, right? I mean, let's ask ourselves a question. On the economy, how are they responding to things? Huh? Pumping it full of money. And at the same time, China, Russia, and everybody is putting a program together to get out of the dollar. At the same time, simultaneously, right? And they owe the Chinese a zillion dollars, okay? And they thinking, well, since the Chinese, we owe them so much money, they can't do nothing with us, and they're gonna say, forget you guys. No, we're gonna do our own stuff, you know what I mean? And you owe us. So whatever you do, and then the world, which way is the world going? The inertia of the world, you know, the inertia in a car, we used to put our hand out before seat belts so the baby wouldn't hit the windshield. I don't know if y'all remember that. But you had to use driving. Everybody automatically did like this if they had kids, because they automatically knew, don't let, but now, so that means the body inside of the vehicle continues to move forward. So they won't be able to say, stop inflation, stop this, stop that, it just keeps going. Okay? They can't give China a lecture and say, your Belt and Road Initiative, we want you to stop. It keeps going. The credibility of the United States, its money, and you would have to live overseas from time to time to understand how big and grave this thing is. You got to remember, like say in the dope trade, that means there's trillions of dollars. Like all the people outside of the United States save American dollars. Right, all of the people, whether in Iran, whether in South America, all the big money deals are done in American dollars, not in pesos. So all the big Colombian deals in cocaine is done in dollars. Okay. You think that they only owe these trillions of dollars, they just up to the 2-3 trillion to loan everybody? No, it's not like that. Or that it's $18 trillion or 20, it ain't like that. Here's why. Outside of America, everybody, since I can remember, and I know it personally over 50 years, so it's been going on longer than that, save their money in dollars, right? So the Treasury here estimates how much money they're saving. They're putting away, taking it off the market. Over there, everywhere. And guess what they do here? They reprint. Colombia has, let's see, 20 years ago they was going to pay the national debt $4.5 billion, and they have crates of money. Like, I don't know if you ever seen some of them raids they have. They have pallets of $100 bills. pallets. Okay, boss man, he estimates the money in circulation here, and he estimates how much is down there in vaults and everything, and everywhere else. And he prints more money. He prints and prints and prints. Since everybody say it's all right, he can keep printing it. But what happens the day, that's one of the reasons that we acquire property. So we can't go flat broke because we got 8 pieces of property around that we own, right? Everything in Oakland, we own. Okay, what's going to happen to the dollar when everybody say, we want our money, we want our value in this dollar? The dollar will be wallpaper. It happened to the British pound. Whatever country is in power, their currency becomes, the coin of the realm. When the dollar before 71 was backed by gold, that's one thing, but the war did them so bad, the Vietnam War, they had to, and I'll tell you, I was overseas in 71 in August when that money fell down. If I had $50,000 in my hand one day, the next day it was worth $40,000 in one day. Because the U.S. went off the gold standard, right? So overseas, that mean, and that money started, everything changed in money. The German mark on that day was worth a quarter, 24 marks per dollar. A few years later, it was 2 marks per dollar. I went to the bank right after that to change money, and they said, it's 3 point something or other marks per dollar. That's in one day. That's in one day. I said, good God Almighty, the brother is broke. I said, what are y'all doing? The dollar is, it's off the gold. There ain't no more gold. They had to pay for the war in Vietnam. So they started paying for it in money. Can you imagine how rich those companies got? War-making companies, rifle-building companies, aircraft companies, Boeing, and all of them got. It's just unbelievable.
So I say that's why we have these continuous wars, because they keep getting rich. Too much money.
They have to have, the military, Eisenhower, the biggest general in U.S. history, except for MacArthur, said, beware of the military-industrial complex. When he went out of office in 1960, remember? That was his best lecture. Beware of the military-industrial complex. Before, when you have a war, you'd build up for the war, and after that, you'd send everybody home, and there was no, your old equipment, they would get old, and you wouldn't, you'd be riding horses. They was riding horses up until the 30s, cavalry, you know what I mean, right? They didn't get aircraft carriers till way up in the 30s, right? So they didn't build up for war. Now they always build. That's the economy. That's the economy. And only those people that work directly in the military industrial complex, directly in those factories, or the ones that benefit are the factories themselves. And who keeps and makes sure they got it? Why? There's always a war, because the CIA and all of those people are all linked to that. They keep them wars going on so they can keep having money. Because they get their kickback and they get their, okay, eventually that wears out. And that's what's happening today. That's why we mentioned some of these things that we wanted to mention today, and we definitely mentioned psychoparalysis. Psychoparalysis is a type of self-trained hypnosis where you delude yourself, you paralyze yourself. Self-paralysis. There's nobody paralyzed in the United States government. It's self-paralysis. It can't do any, it won't do it, it can't do anything and it won't do anything. And we're just telling them that you paralyzed yourself. Why you do that to yourself? Because at every stage in history, the great power does that to itself. They have constant wars that they don't win. So the Romans was constantly fighting the barbarians. And the barbarians don't know they're not supposed to whoop Romans, and they keep whooping them and whooping them and whooping them. And they build Hadrian Wall, and pretty soon it goes defunct, and pretty soon they're overrun. And now the Roman Empire is the cathedral thing around that you drive around in the Colosseum, and right, in Rome. And there's no more Roman Empire, right? And nobody could come and put the Roman Empire back together. Mussolini tried, but it wouldn't work. Couldn't do it. The British Empire, the sun never set on the British Empire. All over the world. Can you imagine to be that big? That whenever the sun is rising, if it's down in the islands or in the US, it's dark over here. Well, it's light in Asia and everywhere else. And wherever the sun goes to shine, there's part of the British Empire. And it's all gone. It's all gone. The great American Empire. Can you imagine how fast this thing is going? It's going right before our eyes. And nobody seems to understand. No. Tons of people understand, but they're not functioning together to get some use out of it. Okay, that's our job. Okay. So you says, well, yeah, that shows our big job. So what? If we see the job that has to be done, we just have to try to rise to the occasion to do it. Just because we're sitting here on Benning Road, don't mean that we can't do it. Right? It doesn't mean that. And if it does mean that as the world is looking at the same thing we're looking at, there are people in the world that are seeing the world through the same vision that we have, and those people begin to coalesce and come together. So that's why we call the grand strategy flawless psycho-negroid implementation. I know it makes the white man mad. We always put some in there that psycho, the grand strategy, flawless psycho-negroid implementation. And guess what? It always works. Tell the truth now. Over the last, I don't know how many years, since anybody have been here, we have not miscalled any political or social trends. I mean, they're all written down. We've all talked about it. Okay, so that means that boss man gets mad when we talk like this, because it's almost certain, you know what I mean, that it's going to happen. And remember, we always told him, boss man, don't go over there and jump on those people. Boss man, don't go over there. Boss man, you got to leave your ran alone. Boss man, don't do this to those people. And he keep on doing it. And the same thing happened. Boss man, the Russians got to run out of Afghanistan. What are you going to do that? You got to leave it alone. Now, 20 years, he's just getting out. He's just getting out, and he's just getting his behind wiped by people who are professional butt kickers.
Is it true, somebody who was talking today, even with them trying to leave, they're still trying
Of course. No, remember on our T-shirts and everything, these things, they always got a plan. They always will constantly be trying to implement some ridiculous plan. I mean, they're not going to give up. If they would give up on those ridiculous plans, they would be joining with us and say, well, we're going to fund you so many $1 trillion to get your hand-holding love fest going with the world. But they're too stupid. See, when you go down, you're locked in. That's why the Quran uses that term. Don't worry about it, give him time. But this, he's locked in. And that's the way America is. It feels very strange to give these forecasts and these predictions and for them to come out like they are. But it ain't us. There they are in the Quran. Right? It ain't us. They thinking, them niggas gotta stop talking like that, making that stuff. We're not making it up. All we're doing is sitting there, right? Tell the truth.
That's true, man.
It's all right there in the Quran. Niggas talking that stuff. And we're not doing none of that.
It's just all love, man.
It's all right there. It's simple as that. We don't have, hey man, you almost 100 years old, 70-something years old, can't hardly walk around the block. Well, you can, I mean. You can't do nothing, right? It can't be you, right? But that's part of the psychological warfare. Since you don't believe in Allah, then, hey, we're going to scare you to death. Okay, you may not think that they every time we open our, you could tell by look at the amount of things that happen to our community nationwide. And everything we do all the time. How can they not be seeing us through their eyes? I mean, white folks' eyes, them niggas is dangerous. Those niggas, and then they scared too. Because see, if it was a common Negro, Martin Luther King, Malcolm, they all, okay. But we're using psychological warfare on them. We know what we're doing, and we scare them to death. You mess with me, Crocker. Shoot, if you mess with us, the same thing happens. You mess with any other Negro. But he's been keeping score. Now, you got to imagine his scoreboard looks way different than ours because he's not used to the Negro being right on nothing. Imagine we've been right and he knows it about things we're not even thinking about. That boy is paranoid, and we making fun of him at the same time. We know what we're doing, right? That's what you have to use. You have to use the tools that Allah gives you. You can't use their tools. We're going to go get a rifle and shoot the white man. People is crazy, right? Absolutely not. We're going to match them with this, that, other. Look at what we got here. The fiqh of extreme circumstances. Now, this is just for us now. We ain't going to get out and talk to everybody about this fiqh. But we are using fiqh for fiqh of extreme circumstances. That's the fiqh that was, we're abstracting that fiqh, right, out of the circumstance that existed before. Remember Quran, remember the Sunnah, remember traveling the earth and see what was in as those before you, and then us, how this looks through us. We filtered it through that. That's the fiqh of extreme circumstance. The fiqh, and this is years ago here, The fiqh of non-human warfare. This is back in 2013. Why the fiqh of non-human warfare? Because by that time, you could see that they're getting into the stage, and it's moving quick now. See, okay, if you go back in the late 90s and early 2000s, things was happening fast. But right now, bam, it's almost an explosion in the increase in, you go from 1 gigabyte to a zillion gigabytes, just like that, you know what I mean? Because this is modern time, you see. So what used to, if you watched certain movies in 2000, early 2000, what was that one with Will Smith? Will Smith was a lawyer.
Enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state. That stuff was up to date for them. But the FBI was still, they had the telephone poles, you know, outside of the Italian restaurant, spiked with old spikes they used to use in my time. If they wanted to bug you, they put a spike. That's what they call it. They nail a thing into your woodwork in your house or under your floorboard, and if they could pick up. That must have been around 93 or something, something like that. But by that time, they were showing you they got their satellites that can pick up everywhere you can run in the city. Okay, that was reasonably true, but now it's overwhelmingly true. They were still, in those days, still using bugging telephones. Then they went to pointing the thing at the telephone, at your window to pick up stuff, and they could pick up. And then the stuff, in the last 20 years, it's the Psychozoic age, as we call it. But anyway, the point is, they can't keep up with us. And they don't know when we're flim-flamming them or playing with them. And you got to remember, we never gave up on the old-time Negro, because the FBI, and we've said it, and they still don't know what to do. The FBI could get people in the 60s because they knew where they was coming. They get people in the 90s and all that because they knew where they was coming from. They don't know the old Negroes back in 1910 and 19... See, I listened to my father. He was born in 1900. And I sat there as a kid listening to all them old men and the stuff they did to boss man to get what they wanted. Nobody in the 60s knew it. The FBI don't know none of that stuff. That's old Negro stuff. We got it down. That's why we're doing what we're doing. Well, Allah is the reason why, but what I'm saying is we made use of that mentality. See, we combined that old Negro stuff, mid 20th century, okay, 1960s and 70s, something black nationalism, right? And of course, Islam. Yeah. They have no idea about that. That out of the 3 pillars the stool is sitting on, they have no idea about that other part. And they don't have no Negroes to tell them either. They can't. No Negroes in the FBI and the CIA can say, boss man, when them old time Negroes do this or do that, those people are dead 50 years ago or longer than that, right? So Allah give you what you need during your time, But who trusts that? Nobody trusts that. That's old coon. That's coonology. Yes, it sure is. That's why it's working. And all your intellectual, we're going to have a divergent view about this black perspective, and that's going to work. It ain't working. Okay. The thick of science fiction, the thick of counterespionage, the thick of counterespionage. Okay, this is from 2013, yeah. And we always talked about the thick of coincidences and the thick of circumstances. Okay. This is one of the main reasons that we're in the position that we're in. Okay. In closing, I want to mention that we've always maintained certain characteristics that honesty, love, all of that stuff. And it don't look like that's what we're practicing, Remember when I was in the hospital and I was sitting there like this and I couldn't figure out but one word to use, optimism. And I kept saying that, optimism. And that's, of course, part of our policy. What is it? Love, optimism, and humor. All right. Why humor? I'm going to talk just a little bit about target and targetism. The life of a target. See, when Allah loves you, He gives you a chance to go through all kind of stuff so that life makes a little sense to you. But nobody generally would want to be the target of the system. And that's why we talk about longevity of the target. Targetism, the purpose to encircle, intimidate, isolate, produce depression, loneliness, harass, terrorize, paralyze, systematically terrorize and discourage the target. And they always do that. They did it to Martin Luther King. And they didn't do it to Malcolm, but they was on the way. He hadn't given up, but he said, I'm a walking dead man. You know what I mean? Right. Okay. So, if you get a chance to be the target, you have to use that chance. Okay. It don't make no difference. When people look at the target, they're counting the days. The target's going to be dead in a few weeks. The target, he told the children, or some of the people in the family, we're doing this to keep him alive because if, and girls want to see their father alive. Like your mother wants to see you alive, but your father might want to be free. So your mother is begging, please don't lynch my poor little boy. But the little boy may rather get killed than be still in slavery. But the mother, the character of the woman is to preserve, to safeguard life. That's her nature. So you look at, anywhere you look, the mother is always pleading for the life of the child or the Negro. A Negro man couldn't plead for himself before the white nigga, you go on. But master, just let him live a few more days, let him come home with me, I'll make him be good. And 10% of the time they might get it. Okay. So, targetism is to understand when you're a target. And to manipulate, now we didn't use words for this. What is the word we was using? Discombobulate, but no, we was using when you domesticate, domesticate. We have used the word domesticated the white man, domesticated the system. When you domesticate anything, you use it for your benefit, right? So the cow give milk for you. And if there's any left over, the calf can get some. But you're going to milk that cow because you want milk. So the cow going to have to develop the ability to give you enough milk and to give the calves enough milk too. Okay. They would always destroy a target by doing many things. Like whether it's Al Capone or Negro Joe, or when I came here was a nigga had a big name selling drugs. Rayful Edmonds. They build him up as big. Now they know what they're doing. The nigga is nowhere near that big. Nowhere near that much. Or he wouldn't sell his people out for a bucket of chicken. At least that's what they said, that he told on them for some. They told the FBI, before I get to talking, I want you to get me a bucket of chicken. So they get the nigga, he's in the penitentiary. And he tells on everybody, the Colombians and everybody, they wouldn't trust no more Negroes after he, you know what I mean? And for them to hook up a connection for you inside the penitentiary, that means they like you. But they don't like Negroes no more because they tell on you. But anyway, now, so let's get to the point. So they inflate, like Billy the Kid, Jesse James, that's the meanest robber in the world history. So when the sheriff catch him, the sheriff is big, right? Because I caught so-and-so. And I was looking at, they making us big, that's big so-and-so. That's what they was doing to me in Oakland. I said, yeah, that's partially true, but blow it up, make you big, and they can arrest you and do anything they want to you. So if he's that big and we do this to him, that means that y'all ain't got a chance. Because this nigga is 15 feet tall and y'all ain't but 2 or 3 feet tall, so you don't have a chance, right? That's the thing about inflating people before you bring them down to make you look big. This is a pattern of government behavior. I'll wrap it up in a minute. So inflate the target, encircle the target, isolate the target, hang in public. That's the reason I ran away from America. I left the country because I said, you'll never drag me behind your chariot. You know, I'm the most popular guy in town in California. You ain't gonna drag me behind your chariot, you know. So I run off. You know how I run off? I learned a lesson. When I was in them kiddie jails, I would wind up spending a lot of time, and so would a lot of Negroes. And I would look at the little white boys. They would run away from the jail. And they would go home a year before we would. So it's easy to figure out. Don't sit there and stew like a crab and thing. Just jump up and get out of there and leave. You'll do less time if you run off than if you stay there. No, it was simple. I was watching the little white kids. Man, I was doing the little kiddie jails 2 years and all that kind of stuff, and the little white boys do 6 months. He come and he can't stand, I get stand, and he run off. Well, if you run off, you throw the system into, you know, It's got to be looking for you. It's got to do this. And if you stay there, all they do is take you over to the hole and beat you upside the head, right? You're staying there. You're taking the punishment. So with all that big name, probably if I would have went to the prison when I had that big name, I might have still be in prison now. But after I run off, and then when they see you run off, they treat you different than they do if you don't. This nigga here's gonna sit here and take all this punishment. So, hey, I'm telling you, you gotta study the system. I'm gonna move toward determine when and where to fight. What is it? Learn your enemy, 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories. What is it? Something like that. Know your enemy, know yourself. 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories. That's all. Okay. I'm going to finish up with era of kindness, gratefulness, and optimism. We're thankful to Allah for all of this. And what we wanted to do in the very beginning, from the very beginning, to archive everything we did. We have been the archives for this. That's why we got all these notes. This is from old notebooks. Archives, documentalists. Nobody chronicled the day-to-day decline, rise and fall of the black movement in America. Nobody ever did that. That's what we've been doing all along. That's why all these are from notebooks from way back. Era of kindness, okay, Archivist, documentalist, chronicler, historian. And the last words we want to remind ourselves of, not only longevity, over a long period of time. Willpower, strong-mindedness, fortitude, self-control, self-command, self-mastery, tenaciousness, the ability to hold on. Hey, and remember, you could see it from right here. The training, if you could see right here, it says the training is just a joke. The training, we're trained to fight for 500 rounds. That's what we train for. Yeah, we've trained for our kind of fight, their kind of fight. And we're way up in those numbers. Look at the stuff we've dealt with over the decades. This must be the 289th round or 389. We way up there. Right? We're way up there. Are there any questions and comments about redundancy, the fiqh of redundancy? Throwing the punch out there, throwing it out so sloppy that it got to come over and hit you. That's the fiqh of redundancy. You make the white man hit you where you want him to hit you. You got to give him a target, though. That's the fiqh of redundancy. He's been hitting us everywhere we want to get hit. And it ain't hurting nobody. The punches he would throw on anybody else would kill him. Financially, the government been hitting us, been throwing back-breaking blows for decades. And we still running around, jumping up and down. He don't know how much money we got. He don't have any idea. Just like he didn't have no idea back in the dunya. He thought he did, but he never knew. So, he don't know whether we're flat broke or rolling in money. Because for him, money is a sign that you may be coming near the end. It's not a sign for us. It's a sign for toughness. That's why we say be prepared to sleep under a bridge. Well, psychologically, we are right now. When we go back to California, we're prepared to sleep under a bridge. We may drive a car, we may not drive a car. We could catch the bus, we could catch a train, we could almost hitchhike. We can do what we want. Because it's better for him that we have a car so he can follow us properly. Because if we hitchhike, he have to put somebody out there to do it. And we don't. We could hitchhike, right? We could do whatever we want. We don't have to do, we're not bound, because that I can run over here, run over there. No, you consolidate your stuff. And then, like imagine, when you ride the subway or the metro, look at all the people you see. If we ride the metro where we're going to go, he's going to have 200 or 300 people following us to make sure that they're all sitting around wherever we're sitting, they're going and coming. So anybody we talk to, right? It'll be him. But guess what? He can't get everybody in place all the time. He can't do it. So we know what we're dealing with, and we know how he is. He's just a big dummy. If he wasn't a big dummy, he would listen that we've been trying, how long we've been trying to help him. Boss man, we just be making fun of you, but you need our help, evidently, but he's not taking it. So bump you. So any questions or comments?
Yes, a couple. Brother asked, it's a question slash comment. I can believe, just like in Vietnam, that there's not some American with their hands in the dope trade in Afghanistan and Vietnam. We send back dope to America. As greedy as Americans are, I can't believe some general or lieutenant is not getting rich. What do you think, Brother Imam?
Shoot. All Americans, Madam knew them in the 60s in Vietnam. The drug trade, the Golden Triangle. What's the name in the movie? What was that? 2007. American Gangster. Who was his connection? The people that was involved with Chiang Kai-shek. Remember, that's what they say. Who is Chiang Kai-shek? Chiang Kai-shek was over in Taiwan, the ruler of China. Okay, now, the United States always, his best ally is always a dope dealer. Always a dope dealer. Whether it's Mexico, Colombia, and all of those people, or Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, the drug production increased 400%, probably it's 500 or 600, but that's what, percent from Afghanistan. And Iran is right next to, so they try to send, I watch a lot of the programs on TV and pay attention when I'm over there. The U.S. always controls the drug trade. It always has. From the time of the British and the Opium War, right? Make a big country weak and destroy it and get them hooked on drugs. Okay, so Afghanistan, you would have to understand the quality of the drugs that they have in Afghanistan. Their main ally used to be Turkey. And the other main ally used to be Iran. What was so popular about them? Before the revolution, that's where drugs came from. They came from Iran and they came from Turkey. Remember the Marseille, the French Connection? Turkey,
And Midnight Express.
right, Turkey, Marseille, France, United States. Okay, Turkey, U.S. ally. Iran during the Shah, U.S. ally. Okay, Vietnam, or the Golden Triangle as they call it, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, all of those U.S. allies. So a U.S. ally, all of the United States could not, do you know how much money they make off of drugs? Good God Almighty. It's unbelievable. You can't count that money. You can't count that. That is the biggest money turnover in the United States is drugs. Nothing turns bigger. Nothing turns bigger in the United States. There's no more money, and all of that money is collected, and all of the big connections, all the big companies. Does anybody remember what happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago down in Colombia? They sent the United States Army down there. Why? Because it was not only the FARC, but the other revolutionary groups was getting into drugs. All of them was getting into drugs. So they started being able to buy the brand new weapons, and they started getting rich, the Colombians. So the U.S. sent their troops down there because Colombian troops couldn't take care of the business, because it's like trying to get a Mexican general to fight the drug trade. The drug dealers give him $5 million, and you just threaten him. So who you think he's going to work for? It's just, when I was messing with drugs, the people I was associated with in the state of Sinaloa, you ever heard of the Sinaloa cartel? I went to the Attorney General's office, the state Attorney General in Sinaloa, and I was introduced to him. And I was there around there, and they had all this Mexican police with big hats and everything. And I said, I'm not used to being around all these police. He said, you see the sign outside that says attorney? Yeah, U.S. I mean the Attorney General of Sinaloa. Negro, you in. That means you can't have, see, I was never arrested in Mexico or Colombia. I ain't never had a problem down there, right? Never. And it was obvious what I was doing. I'm the only Negro in Bogota, Colombia, you know. And I refused to go to Cali because everybody was trying to get me to go to Cali. Why? Cali is mixed, you know. And the Cali cartel was after the Medellin cartel. Yeah, that means they was big. And the people, I wouldn't stand out. I stood out in Bogota. It was only 1 or 2 black people. All the black people, it's 33% of Colombia is black, but they're all on the coast, the Pacific coast. And anyway, as far as drug dealing, hey man, the government deal drugs. They have to deal drugs. They're not going to allow the drug companies and the big people, all of them. What's this, the Sackler company? Sacklers, you could sell all the heroin you want. And then they say, well, now we're going to go after you. Yeah, you done hooked everybody. You done had 10 years. You know how much money you make in a 10-year run? And he done moved all his money over here. So I throw myself on, of course, this the company that's fault. That had nothing to do with me. But the money that was in the company is all gone. So, hey, man, it was a Latin not an FBI agent, but a drug agent, big drug agent. And the white woman, I don't know if you know the white woman that was head of the DEA, she quit 9 or 10 years ago.
It's funny because I remember, and I looked it up, this is in The Guardian.
Right.
Hillary Clinton admits U.S. role in Mexico drug wars.
Forget for a second, like,
Right, that's what they said.
why should you do that?
The government could not allow anybody to make that much money. They couldn't do it because after a year or two, you can buy everybody in the government. So they have to, whether they want to or not, of course they want to, they doubled down on heroin to stop the movement, the black movement, and they did. And it's killed the white folks too. The biggest heroin addicts is white folks, not Negroes. And can you imagine 70,000 white people dying per year? It was only 3,000 or 4,000 Negroes dying, OD, stuff like that. But anyway, yes, we totally support. It's bigger than you think. And just those generals and colonels and a guy bring a couple of kilos of heroin back. Well, if you bring a couple of kilos of Afghanistan pure heroin back to the United States, and you can cut it, let's see, 20 times. Remember, if heroin is 5% on the street, that means it's like a dollar has 20 nickels in it, right? So that means if you got pure heroin, that means that you can cut it, 19 times. Once I had a little problem and I needed a little money, I don't do this very, is that thing still on? Yeah, you can cut it off.